I am Sean Webb, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Rock Goddess, and I am rolling with Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Dave Meltzer, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Zach Poitras, and this is Your Superior Self.
I'm Ginny Sarasvati, and this is Your Superior Self.
What's up, everybody? I'm Aubrey Marcus, and this is Your Superior Self.
What is up, Superior Nation? Welcome back. I'm Trey Downs, and this is Your Superior Self. Thank you for joining. Thank you for downloading this episode. Please leave a rating and a review wherever you get your podcast from. It helps me scale the show. Today on the show, I have Mathew Korban joining us, who has a pretty interesting story. He grew up in Beirut, and as a game, him and his friends would try to guess the caliber of gun and how far the bullets were traveling. Yeah, that is so different from where I come from. And that's why I love having people on like this, like Matt, and having him on the podcast and getting his perspective on life, because that's what makes us grow. That's what gives us more perspective in the world around us, especially in today's world where COVID is real. It is influencing our everyday lives. It's changing the way that we do business. It's changing the way that we communicate. It's changing how we interact with society. I mean, Thanksgiving was yesterday. Happy Thanksgiving, by the way. And it's definitely different than years past. And it has to be until we can safely come up with a solution for this virus and safely be around those that we love without endangering them with the virus. And it is what it has to be for right now. But we will get stronger, we will grow, and we will take lessons from this that will make us expand our consciousness, make us expand intellectually about how we should approach situations like this. How can we prevent, or how can we mitigate some of the processes that we've implemented during this during this virus? How can we get better at predicting certain factors or predicting certain results from this? How can we strengthen our economy? How can we strengthen the way that we do business so that if something were to happen like this down the road, which probably will happen sometime, nothing is outside the theory of chaos, but how do we pivot in the direction that we need to go to earn profits, to make revenue, to survive as a business or survive as the human race? How do we break it down to the basic human function of survival? And honestly, I think it's surrendering to our human nature, surrendering to the fact that we're not perfect, that we're not indestructible, that we're vulnerable, and owning that fact and being able to accept it, know that we are that, and then how do we move on from here? How do we pivot? How do we go back to the drawing board and make things better in our situations, in our everyday lives? How do we make sure that we have a plan B if something like this were to happen again? And Matthew and I talk about certain things that you can do, certain techniques that you can apply to your life that will help you mitigate some of the risk factor. However, you're never ever going to get rid of all the entire risk factor in your life. Like, there is always going to be risk that is 100% guaranteed. I think the only way you can approach risk is surrendering to the fact that it will happen, and surrender to your vulnerability and appreciate that. Use that as a strength. Use that as a tool to move forward in your life, and know that you might not have all the answers, but that's fine. What is the best teacher? That is experience. And from this pandemic, from this virus, we will grow stronger. It may not seem that way right now, with businesses being shut down and people being sick and people getting hurt and people being exposed to some of these horrible symptoms, but we will get stronger. As a species, we'll get stronger as a community, we will get stronger as a society, we will get stronger in the academic researchers because this is all new experience to us. We've never seen anything like this at this scale, and whatever your beliefs are on how it came about, whatever, it's here and there's nothing we can do about it. All we can do is move forward in our lives. How do we get better? How do we take control of our lives that we are living and be in the moment and really learn the lessons that are given to us in each and every day? And that's what we talk about in this episode. And I'm excited. Actually, here's a little clip. Anytime you have Mathew Korban on your show, it's going to be a good time. But here's a little clip about what we talk about.
You know, in one of his methods or teaching, Carl Jung said something. He said, when anything happens to you all of a sudden and you try to fight it or reject it, or it's not like the normal course of your life, just stop there, freeze, and get out of your body. Look at yourself from the outside and see what's happening. Try to judge it, and then come back and make the decision.
Yeah, whenever you quote Carl Jung, it's going to be a good show. I enjoyed this conversation, and I really hope you do too. Before we get into it, please go to yoursuperiorself.com. Leave me a message, email me over there. I will get it, and I will respond back. And I love all your feedback and all your inspiration that you guys send me all the time. It's great. Follow me on social media, on Instagram at tdowns80. And over there on Facebook, I have a kind of like a group, Your Superior Self group that you can follow and like. And you can see some of the behind the scenes action that's going on. I'm trying to motivate you guys to move forward in your lives. I hope you guys had an amazing Thanksgiving. Don't get discouraged. We'll get through this together. Trust me. It's in our DNA. It's in our genetics. We've gotten this far in our human species through evolution and through everything that Mother Nature has thrown at us. Trust me, we'll get through this. Yeah, buddy. But with that said, I hope you guys have an amazing holiday. And without further ado, here is my conversation with Mathew Korban.
Hi, this is Mathew Korban, and this is Your Superior Self.
Matt, my man, how are you, brother?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing excellent. Just got back from the beach. Had a little mini vacay with the family. Ready to get back into things. Ready to get back into the podcast. How you been, man?
Good. All good. I've been good.
Yeah. So why don't you give everyone like a little quick background on you? Like, what are you up to today?
Well, I'm a certified health and life coach. I'm in Ohio, and I have a lot of stories. Where do I begin?
Well, you definitely don't sound like you're from Ohio. So why don't you start there? Where are you from?
I was born in Lebanon in 1976. So my first language would be the French, then the Lebanese. I was born in the French part of Lebanon, and I studied in French school in Lebanon until the age of 11 or 12. And then I moved to France for a while. After this, to the States, then back to the Middle East, where I was working in Dubai and Saudi Arabia for quite some time, for over 15 years.
Now, there's something on your profile that says you can identify a sound of a gun or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
How accurate is that? Like, can it be any gun, or does it have to be a particular?
No, it can't be any gun. You know, I was born in Lebanon in 1976. And why I stress on the date, because this is the date when the war started in Lebanon, and it was a huge, big war. And until the age of 12 or 13, until I left Lebanon, my whole life was hiding in shelters. And even when we used to go to school, sometimes used to hide under the desk, because all of a sudden the war starts, whether it's snipers or anything else. So our game with my friends was identifying what caliber the cannon was and how far it was. So we would go like, that's an 85, no, it's an 80, no, it's 110, it's 25 miles away. And wow. It was fun for us as kids, because we didn't have anything else to do. We used to watch the adults either preparing, or because we used to sit like in a small shelter, like really small, like size of a room of my office now. And that would be close to 25 or 30 people sitting there. And we need to keep ourselves busy. So we don't have anything.
Just guessing the caliber. That's insane, man. Like, I remember growing up just like trying to guess a gum flavor, man. You know what I mean? Like our friends would just like pop in random pieces of gum and we had to like, guess the flavor and the brand. You're guessing calibers of bullets. I mean, that's pretty intense. I mean, not your typical childhood.
I know, but it's amazing how strong humans are and how much we can pivot and adapt. And it reminds me a little bit of what we're having right now with the COVID, and how everyone is just pivoting and adapting to the new normal. And this is what we used to do. I mean, we were kids and we never nagged or did anything. Maybe we did not realize the danger back then of war and getting killed and all of this. But we were able to come up with a game to play all together and to stay quiet without disturbing everyone in a small room. Even though if you think of it now, and whenever I tell my kids or they listen to me telling the story, they think it's insane or it's not right. But at the time, this is all we had. And you got to work with whatever you have.
Yeah, no, like you're exactly right. So do you have like any like flashbacks or any type of like trauma from that? Like, I mean, hiding all the time and war breaking out.
I do have a very cute story, but I'd like to leave it for maybe the end of the show, because it's a nice one. It ends nice. I want to close with it.
You're a tease. I like that. You got to listen to the entire episode before you get to this fantastic story. I like that. One story that I need to talk to you about, that I would love to talk to you about, is when you were on the operating table and you had this out of body experience. Now, I kind of give you some context. Like, I've been really, really researching a lot about spirituality recently and some of the different methods of consciousness and how to attain higher levels of consciousness, and just learning more about neuroscience and the science behind that. So I'm really interested to hear the story. So go ahead.
I'll tell you something. I'll tell you the story, but sometimes I can't really explain if it's really what happened, like, or it's something that our mind does. I can't explain it, but I can explain something else because I'm a coach. That when you want something, when you're determined to have something, you just don't give up. And this is what happened to me. It's amazing how our childhood programs us, and how we were programmed since we were like little kids until we grow up. And this is what happened with me. After I left Lebanon with all of these unpleasant memories and everything that was inside of me, there was a kind of stress, and the stress was, I don't want to go back to this. And I knew that I wanted a family eventually, and I was growing up and I was becoming an adult, and I wanted to give my kids the best life. So I started putting pressure on myself and working like 17, 18 hours a day, and putting a lot of pressure and becoming like someone very, very famous or very successful. Because at the time, when you start with the objective, you start with the pure objective and you say, I want this. But after a while, you just drift from this objective. And that's what happened to me, I guess. And it becomes a matter of pride. And you just love being in the center of attention. So one day, after a long career of success and being in the spotlight, but being unhealthy and not eating healthy, having very unhealthy lifestyle with everything. So I went to the doctor. I remember that day 4 years ago. And I told the doctor, listen, doc, I can't walk anymore. I'm 400 pounds. My weight is 400 pounds. And by the way, I'm 175 now. So
wow, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So I said, can you do something to my knees? I mean, I can't stand up anymore. I don't want to sit on a chair. I'm a CEO of a big company, and I work with the governments, and I work with huge consultancies, and I need to maintain this thing. So it's like, let's have some tests. So he started with all kinds of tests you can imagine. You know how doctors are. They just they just come up with all the tests except the pregnancy. It's the only test they do, probably. So after I woke up, he was like, listen, man, you have 5 months to live. You have a severe inflammation inside of you, in your stomach and spleen, especially your spleen, and you have 5 months to live, and just go enjoy life. And at that moment, I refused, and I was like, no, I want to live. What are my options? So it's like, okay, we can operate on you, and the operation can go right, or it can go wrong. I mean, so anyways, I signed the waiver. I called my lawyer. I wrote my will and everything. And I was alone. My family were here in Ohio, and I was alone in Lebanon at the time. And on the operating table, I remember that before I closed my eyes, it was like a series of stuff. The first thing that happened to me, I started remembering, having flashbacks of my kids' laughters and my wife's voice and everything. And weird enough, the only thing that I didn't think of is my career or signing new clients or the pitch or being in the presentation. And this is when I knew that I was doing the wrong thing. But then when somehow when the doctor counts till 3 and he says, I'm going to put you to sleep, somehow I remember seeing myself lying on the operating table. And watching this, suddenly everything came to my mind, and it's like you transcend to your pure self, and you think, what am I doing with my life? And I still feel it until now. I have goosebumps now. This fear, I was afraid. I was petrified for the first time of my life. I was afraid to leave life. I was afraid to just go and vanish just like this before accomplishing anything. And this time, I wasn't talking about accomplishing money or career or fame. I was talking about leaving something for something good for my kids, for my family, for my entourage, for everyone around me, other than being selfish and just running after the spotlight. And this fear somehow was shaking me. And when I woke up, I remember the doctor was telling me, you were shaking, and we had to increase the dose of anesthesia, because at a certain point you were shaking, which was something very unnatural or very rare.
Uncommon.
Yeah, uncommon as he put it. And at that time, I remember 2 things only. One thing I remembered, funny enough, God, because when we're successful and we don't need him, we don't remember him. And I consider myself someone who prays and whatever. Anyways, so I was like, okay, God, I'm sorry, I forgot you, but I promise you I'm going to do it right this time. And the second thing I remembered is the voice of my jiu-jitsu instructor when I used to practice martial arts, and he used to tell me, when you fall 6 times, make sure you stand up 7 and don't stay down, just stand up. And I said, I want to wake up. And when I woke up, the doctor hugged me. I was like, whoa. He said, we lost you, man. I was like, what? He said, we lost you. You were shaking and we lost you for a while. And then you're back.
They can't explain it.
So now, doctors, I mean, they say it's the procedure, and probably it was, but for me, it was more than this. It was a sign to shift my whole career. It was a sign to take everything I learned, my whole experience, everything I accomplished, and do something good with it this time.
That is awesome. That is like, I got goosebumps, dude. Like, so you saw your body on the operating table, and you had this remembrance of your kids and your wife, and you pray to God. I guess you're praying to God outside of your body as well. And you're introduced to your true self, and your true self basically, I mean, you had a decision. I mean, you're basically down, you're dead, you're on the operating table, basically done. You have to make that choice. Do you want to continue living the way that you were living, or do you want to really leave a legacy worth having on this earth. And you decided life. I want to do that. And
Absolutely.
You want to live, and you woke up and the doctor is hugging you. That's crazy. So after you have this surgery and you're still a CEO at this point, right?
No, I changed my whole career.
But after the surgery, after the surgery, you were still a CEO.
I was still a CEO.
And you decided, I can't do this. This was my sign. I have to change my life.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming you sold your company.
I gave away my company. Yes.
Gave away your company.
I gave away everything, and I started over like a clean slate from scratch. And I know that I did this 3 or 4 times, but before I did it because I was making mistakes. This time I did it because I was doing it right. So I started over, and I shifted.
Talk about that fear, though. That fear right there, like that fear of you just gave it away, but you had inspiration to do that. Like you were inspired to give it up, but there's still got to be a fear going back to that clean slate.
To be honest with you, it was fear who made me do this. I mean, I remember that moment, watching myself and how much I was afraid. And I mean, if we see all of these movies, whenever I see these movies, something happens to me with someone standing outside his body or whatever. So that fear told me that, no, you can't play with this. You can't make a promise and then back off once you're good now and the operation worked out. So to be honest with you, it was fear first. Like, I don't want to do this.
Fear.
Oh, yeah.
Fear of not keeping that promise to God that said, I got to get rid of this thing. Like, I'm doing it. I don't care. But to know, like, to just start over, like, did you have like an area, like you became a life coach, right? You became a health coach, life coach.
Yeah.
But I mean, where did that vision come from? Like, how did you decide to do that?
First of all, I thought that I want to help my colleagues. I want to help top executives. I want to help CEOs who don't have time for themselves, who think that it's now they're living in the moment and they just ignore everything around. They just want to be successful. And I totally understand them because I was there. And I want to help them I want to prevent what happened to me to happen to them. I want to help them restore balance to their lives. And I know I can do it because I was there and I know exactly everyone, how he feels and how, from the little thing that, for example, I don't have time to get a salad. I need a sandwich because these 5 minutes, I can accomplish so much in these, and I don't want to waste time on my salad. Mm-hmm. So these little things, I understand them. And this affects their life. This affects everything. This affects the relationship. So at the time, I didn't think that I want to be a coach. I thought that I want to help those people. And then when I started thinking again and connecting with my friends and helping them, and they started calling me and asking me for stuff. And I knew that I needed a certification. I need to get certified to be a coach because there are some technical stuff I'm lacking. Mm-hmm. And I can't improvise. You can't just play with other people's
no, you can't do that at all.
So I went back to school, to college, and I got certified as a health and life coach. And then I started again, but this time I'm doing it right. And I've been doing it for almost 4 years now. Mm. Most of my friends or the people I helped are still my clients. And I found purpose, honestly. Mm. Other than I'm home with my family all the time and I'm coaching them. I mean, can you imagine yesterday, my 8-year-old son, James, came to me and he said, Dad, can you coach me? I was like, on what? He said, I heard one of your podcasts and you were talking about coaching people to become better and more fit and restore balance. Sometimes I feel I'm lazy or sometimes I feel I'm in a bad mood. Can you coach me around this? He's 8. And I'm like,
8?
Yeah. And I'm like, wow. This guy is listening, and it's amazing how kids listen, even if they don't say it sometimes, but they do listen.
Oh, they listen all the time. Trust me, my kids say stuff right after me, or they'll. You know, what's funny is that they'll act like they don't hear me, but I can go in the other room and whisper cupcakes or something like that, and they'll come running in. Did you say cupcakes? But if I ask them to go upstairs and clean their room, they don't hear that for nothing, like at all.
Yep.
I love that story, man. That's great. 8 years old, listening to podcasts, getting after it in the world of positivity and inspiration. Like but that's your son. That's a powerful moment right there. That's to see a little version of yourself looking back at you, knowing that what you went through was totally different than what he's going through. But to be that support for him has to feel good.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like you have that opportunity. You wouldn't have had that opportunity if you didn't make that promise to God, or if you had chosen to live your life differently and still be 400 pounds and, make those life choices. So, I mean, everything that you decided to do has equaled up to this moment where your son is looking up at you, 8 years old, asking dad, "Hey, look, man, sometimes I feel bad. Sometimes I feel negative. And sometimes I feel lazy. How do I get better?" And I mean, that's an amazing story, man. Like you got to remember that forever, brother.
And when we're in the moment, we don't really see it. That's the thing. I mean, I know that 4 years ago, I came to visit them on Christmas, and I stayed only for 24 hours, and then I flew 24 hours back to Dubai from the States. And that was the last time before my surgery. And I remember he was 4. I remember he grabbed onto my leg and said, "Don't leave, I'll be back." Then he ran to his room. He came back with a bunch of toys and his piggy bank. And he was like, "Dad, take these, sell them and take the money, but just stay." And I didn't see it at the time. I was like, "Son, I'm doing this for you." And I was doing this for myself.
Yeah.
And that's the, listen, I'll tell you something. My dad has always been away since I remember, because he's working somewhere else all over the world and to provide to us. And I remember I was 9 years old. I told my dad, "Dad, when are you gonna be back home? I mean, you missed every birthday. I missed all my birthdays practically, and sometimes Christmas. So when are you gonna be back home?" And he said, "In 2 years, son." Well, guess what? I asked him the same question like two or 3 weeks ago on Father's Day, when I called him to wish him Happy Father's Day. I said, "Dad, when are you going to be home to see my kids?" And he said, "In 2 years." So I don't blame him, and this is why I decided to coach top executives, because when they're in the moment, when they are in under the spotlights, they don't see it, and they always think they're doing it for someone else, whereby they're not.
Well, that's just it's their excuse. I should say it's their excuse because of the ego. A lot of the research that I don't even say research, a lot of the learning that I've done around this in the moment, right? Like the moment is that's where eternity is. If you can stay in that moment forever, it would last forever, but we don't, because the ego drops in and tells us you need to start thinking about the future. You need to start worrying about your past. You need to, where are you going? What have you done? What do you measure up to? What are you, blah, blah, blah. What are your parents going to say? What is your wife going to think, or your kids, and you go into that and you forget the moment, just like you forgot the moment with your son, because you were trying to prove to him that you're worthy of something. That you're worthy of this career, you're worthy of, supporting him, and all he wanted was just another day with his dad. And we forget that. We get, we succumb to fear of change, right? Like that's what a lot of CEOs, they know that these lifestyles are bad for them. They know that they can't sustain this type of lifestyle, but they fear change, that if they start over, they won't be able to earn money. They'll be poor. Right. Or they fear that change will never come, that they give up and they do something else, and that positivity, their happiness never finds them.
Yep. So true.
And I think a lot, I struggle with that sometimes too, like that change, that fear of change, like, well, what I'm, this, I'm just being honest. Like sometimes the thought creeps up. It's like, am I getting up and running these miles for good, like for a reason, right? Like, is it going to benefit me down the road? But you can't do that. You got to live in the moment. You got to know and have the choice, or not have the choice, but make the decision that what you're doing is a positive. And the only thing you can do is decide to do it. That's it. And go from there. You can't worry about if it's going to affect you later, because later's not here. Right now is now. And right now is why we're here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one more thing I noticed through my practice, through my coaching, is the more successful you are, the more hesitant you are to ask for help. And I keep telling everyone, it takes courage and strength to ask for help, because you can't do everything yourself. It's okay to say, I can't, to say I can't, or help me. And the moment you start by saying, help me, or I need help, or I can't do this, is the moment you start to recognize that you're strong, because you're asking for, because we don't live alone. We need each other. And this is why it's a bit hard and tricky to work with top executives, but it's amazing. It's very fulfilling for me, because it's somehow my message. I connect with them quickly. I mean, when they hear my story and when we start talking, and most of the time we start talking numbers sometimes and meetings, and they rehearse with me for their meeting and stuff, which is fine, because I was one of them, and here I am.
Sure. Talking all the figures, the finances, you know, all that bottom line and revenue. Have you been, you know, I know you coach, those are your clients. Have you ever successfully coached one out of their business? Like, have you ever really helped them change their lifestyle? Or do you more focus on like making them aware of what their CEO lifestyle is taking away from them and try to rebalance that?
It's a very, very interesting question, because it's a process, and you're right. I mean, it starts with them admitting that they need help. Then the second step is very crucial, because the second step, I call it the low-hanging fruit. So I work on small little changes, like we say, small hinges swing big doors. Mm-hmm. So, and these little changes will be seen or recognized by people around them. And once they are in public, or because successful people, I mean, everyone, but especially top CEOs and executives, they need to maintain certain status. They need to maintain certain PR. So when their entourage and their family, they start recognizing that the change, the positive change, it will give them motivation. And then we move to the third stage, which is a crucial stage. The third stage is revealing the why beneath the why. So exactly, why do they need X, Y, Z? I'll tell you an example. A true example, without saying names, of one of my clients, and I love her. She's amazing. She knows herself. She came to me and she's like, listen, man, I need to lose some weight. I'm like, okay, fair. I mean, why? I said, what do you mean why? I want to lose some weight. I said, why? She's like, okay, now you're getting on my nerves because I want to look sexy. I said, okay, fine. Why? After like 200 whys and talking for like more than 60 minutes, she goes like, I want my husband to look at me again. He's not considering me. I'm not there for him. I mean, it's like, okay, so this is the real why. So the third step is usually the first 15 or 20 reasons anyone says when you ask them the question why you want to do this aren't the real reasons. Because funny enough, we try to find false reasons and we try to find ways to fail, so that we would give ourselves the satisfaction that, okay, I tried and I failed, now leave me alone. Because like you said, we don't want to get out of our comfort zone. We just want to stay there. And yeah, it's easier to
just like, I don't know. It's easier to give that superficial why and be like, yeah, because I just want this. Because then it's like, all right, well, it doesn't really mean anything to me. And if I don't accomplish it, then there's no sweat off my back. I don't know if a lot of people know their whys. Like, I don't, or maybe it's just so layered, like you're talking about, like just so many different layers on top of layers that they consciously don't realize it. And it's not until you get with a life coach like yourself where you guys can go through that, you know, break those layers down and truly get to the reason. And then once you find that reason, you attack it and you just go after it, right? Like,
absolutely.
That's interesting. Like, your why. Like,
Absolutely. That's why we need to ask the right questions, because it's very tricky. I mean, I've had some clients just leave me because they thought I was coming too aggressive, and in fact it's their ego or their pride that got in the way, and it's the shield. And then they came back after a month or two saying, can we start over? Because sometimes you don't want to admit your why, because it reveals certain weakness you have, and no one likes to reveal a weakness.
no, survival, right? Like you can't seem weak. I mean, especially with a CEO, you got to think about the CEO is the man or the woman who's in charge, the commander in chief, and they're the ones that have to pay people's salaries. They have to meet, they have to meet a whole bunch of different, deadlines. They have everything rides on their shoulders essentially. So you think about the egos that are associated with that, like the successes that they obtained if they're coming to you at this point. And the problem is that once they reach a certain pinnacle of success, how do you top the next one? You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like you keep achieving, and you keep reaching this success level. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's all the same level. It's just you're looking for the next best thing, and it's not ever going to be there. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like, especially if you look at the neuroscience behind it, the dopamine and things like that. Like we just keep getting these hits of dopamine, and it's like you get addicted to that.
Oh, absolutely.
You get addicted to the success, and it's like, you try to top the next one, and then you start losing the enjoyment of the journey. Like that's where the true enjoyment is. It's like the journey of getting to where you're trying to go. I mean, if you really think about your last success, how long did you enjoy it? Like, I don't know, maybe a day, 2 days, depending on how big it was. And then after that, it's like, what's next? You know what I mean? And then the journey from point A to point B, in between A and B, that's where the life lessons are, man. That's where like the journey is. Enjoy the journey in the moment, like we had just talked about.
It gets shorter every time, and this is, I mean, it's what you mentioned is very interesting and very, very true, because when you work with top executives, you gotta give them the challenge, because they love the thrill. They love the adrenaline and the dopamine and all of the sensation, the thrill sensation. They love this. So if you keep this thrill, if you keep this level high through the coaching, they'll be happy. Mm-hmm. And this is the key thing. And the next thing is, don't challenge them to get away from their comfort zone. That's why one of my methods is, which is move. I call it move. It's, you don't have to leave your comfort zone. I mean, everyone says just challenge yourself, get out of your comfort zone. No, don't. Why? You don't need to. You were working so hard to be in your comfort zone. It's like your home. You don't go changing homes every year just to challenge yourself. No. But what you do is you keep moving and you drag your comfort zone with you. It's like your shield, your bubble. Just don't lose it. Drag it with you. And this is where I come in to coach them, to help them, to keep this bubble, to drag it with them, and to feel safe while moving. Because if they don't move and they sit there, actually they're going backwards, because everyone else is moving.
Yeah, I like that. I've never heard that before. Bring your comfort zone with you, make it a shield. I think it's just so crazy, man, to really, I don't know if you're into this or if you're really thought about this in your coaching, curriculum or not, just being aware of the self, being able to realize what the self is, and that you're, basically not your thoughts, more so, being less attached to a lot of the successes. Like, I don't know, man, like I read one of my buddies, Doug Brockman, wrote a book, and he basically helped me realize that a lot of the neurochemicals in our brains, like I have, for some reason, I could possibly have ADD, but I was never diagnosed with it. But my reward centers, they don't fire all the way. So like for me to feel dopamine or whatever, a reward fulfillment, it takes a lot. It takes a lot for me because of my genetics or my my code. And so what I've done is, it's like I've been able to detach a lot of different success. Like my new philosophy is knowledge for the knowledge, like not knowledge for like, an add-on, like a transcript edition or whatever, like trying to be the best of the best of the best. It's more so like learning different things. So that way it makes me a better, well-rounded individual. So that way I can, like, I don't know, man, being more self-aware, like realizing like what the human body is yearning for. Like, why was I so heavily, wanting those rewards, so wanting those successes, and like understanding the chemicals behind that, right? Like the going back to the hunter-gatherers days, and wanting to be popular because that was the survival back then, like being in groups, understanding the neuroscience behind that. And then the lone guide basically died off, you know what I mean? So like whenever you get embarrassed, like why you feel so bad is because the cortisol that was released in your body, because you're scared of being alone, you're scared of that change, you're scared of what's going to happen. Everything happens because of fear. I mean, basically all the bad negative feelings is fear of change again. And I mean, I hate to take over this interview, but it's like I just, everything that I've been reading recently and gaining knowledge in, like we're discussing right now, and it like fires me up. But more about you. Okay, so get off me for a minute. Very interesting story. I'm gonna mix it up here. Like, how did you meet your wife? I think there's a story, like a funny story about you meeting your wife.
There is, yeah. I mean, funny enough, my life has been a series of stories, and I think someone showed me this, and I was a couple of years ago with one of my mentors, and he told me, "Have you ever stopped and thought why your life was a series of stories and series of suffering at a certain point, then recovering? And have you ever thought of this?" It's like, no, why? He said, "There's a purpose behind this. Maybe it's your mission not to be a consultant. Maybe it's your mission to be a coach, to help people, to inspire people." And I know I drifted from my wife's story. I'm gonna come back to that. And this is when I decided to tell my story, because before that I used to be ashamed of my story. I was like, no, I'm not gonna go on stage and tell my story that I was obese and I was unhealthy and I was so selfish. And because for me, I was successful and I have loads of recognitions and awards and all of these things. But it's funny how you see the same thing, but from two different angles. And that guy at the time, a couple of years ago, he held a phone. He has a phone in his hand. He held the phone and he put it inside, like in front of my face. And he was like, "Tell me, what do you see?" It's like, "What do you mean, what do I see?" He said, "What do you see?" I said, "I see the screen of your phone." He said, "No." I said, "Yeah." He said, "No, I'm looking at the camera." And he was looking at the back. I said, "I don't get it." He said, "It's the same object. I'm seeing the camera, you're seeing the screen. We're looking at the same object. You have always to look from all angles." So I was like, "Oh, okay." So he helped me. He gave me some ideas for my methods that I developed through my coaching. And this is how everything started to make sense. And this is how I started to tell my story, because my story is inspiring people. I mean, I don't enjoy showing the picture on stage when I go on stage of me how I was before, or telling the story, or even when I tell the part when I was on the operating table and I still feel some sadness and some fear inside mixed up. But I know that it's gonna inspire some people, and I do it for that reason, because I want to inspire people. I want to help as much people as I can, and this is what I'm doing now. So let's go back to my wife's story. Oh my God. Okay, so maybe 12, 13, 14 years ago, my boss at the time, I was still in consultancy, and he called me to his office, and he said I was in charge of the whole Middle East operation as a senior consultant. And he goes like, "Listen, man, you have to go to Beirut, to Lebanon. You know what you speak. You still speak the language, right?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, okay, you have to go there, and there's a big workshop there, and you have to attend it and lead this workshop. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do this. He said, yes. I said, no. He said, it's not an option. He said, you don't get it. It's emotional. I mean, I have these feelings, these bad memories when I go there. I mean, it's kind of trauma, and I don't want to sound like a drama queen or anything, but it is. I mean, it's not a pleasant thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I'm sorry, it's not an option. And I landed in Lebanon, and it was just for 3 days, excuse me. And the first 2 days, it was this workshop. And the third day, I went to this hole-in-the-wall coffee shop, literally out of nowhere, in the middle of nowhere. And it was really small coffee shop. I sat there with my headphones, with my music, with my favorite book, and I was reading it and just counting the minutes, because all I had is just these bad memories and everything that's unpleasant that came back to me, and I just wanted to end. And I was counting the minutes until I need to go to the airport and fly again. And at that time, here's this lady who opens the door and comes in without looking at anyone. And the coffee shop is so small, it has only like 2 couches. That's it. And she sat on the other couch, or the only remaining couch. She ordered an espresso. She put her headphones on. She opened her book. And I smiled. I went close to her. I nudged her. And she didn't look at me. She said, I'm not interested, even if you were Bill Gates.
Mm-hmm.
And I smiled. I was like, damn it, you still mean. And she looked at me and she was like, oh my God, that's you. And I mean, the last time I saw her, we were like 17 years old, maybe. And that was the last time I saw her. So it was more than 20 years or 15 years to be exact. And I was like, yeah. So she was like, wait, isn't today your birthday? It's like, seriously? You still remember my birthday? I mean, my parents don't remember my birthday. I mean, my dad calls me every year on a different date, and he goes like, it's your birthday, son. And I never tell him no. And I say, thank you for remembering. It was 6 months ago. So anyways, we started talking, and this lady, who is today my wife, she used to be my best friend. And we used to run in school together, and we used to hide under the table together, and we used to be in the same classroom, and we used to sit on the same desk. And when I left Lebanon, it was the last time I saw her, or I was in touch with her. I didn't even have her contact or her email or anything at all.
Wow.
And I called my boss and I said, listen, man, can I just come back in a week time? He's like, what happened? I said, I'm dealing with something here. So he smiled, said, go ahead. So, and as I say, the rest is history. I went to see,
Awesome.
Actually, the emotional part is I went to see her mom. Mm-hmm. And I went to her house and we said hi and everything. And after like 15, 20 minutes, and you know, Lebanese people are very generous. So she made me 3 times coffee. She gave me like 15 pieces of chocolate. And so she went to her room and she said, don't leave, wait. And then she came out with a box. She opened the box and she started getting like postcards and little papers and stuff. And she said, what are these? She said, these are the papers you used to write to my daughter, Marina, who's today my wife, when you were little, because I mean, I had a crush on her when I was a little boy, but you know, as a little boy, you had a crush on every girl.
Sure.
She was special, just in case she's listening now. Special, honey. So her mom just kept every postcard, just kept everything because she wanted to give it to her when she grows up. And she never knew that moment would come. She said, okay, because she kept everything from her childhood. And here are a bunch of stuff that I gave her. So yeah, it's amazing how destiny leads you somewhere, and how sometimes you need just to let go and surrender and just go with
and surrender. That's like your reward of all rewards. I mean, you go to a place that you hate, you go back to hell and you find an angel. I mean, that is,
I like this. Yeah. It's a good way to put it. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's amazing. So like, do you feel like, you know, things, obviously you believe in the universe happening for you, right? Like it doesn't have, you know, oh, why is this happening to me? Like it happens for you. Everything happens for you. You just got to find why it is, right? Like, I just feel like we're here. I don't know, man. I fall on that too. You know what I mean? Like, I sometimes I'm like, why is this? What is going on? Like, why is this happening to me? And then I have to step back and realize that I'm trying, like, the universe is trying to teach me something, like 100%. All the negativity, all the positive in my life have happened for a reason. And because of free will, I made decisions. I'm here right now talking to you because of the result of all my decisions combined. And going forward, and until you realize this, you can't change anything. You can't change anything. Like, you can either be a victim or you can be, a person that's going to go out and make his future, right? Or her future. And it starts with right now, deciding how you're going to view life. Is it gonna, is this happening? Are you listening to this podcast because it's a gift? Are you listening to this podcast because you're stuck in traffic and there's 30, 40 minutes outside of your house, but you can't get there because you're in traffic? But now you're listening to this podcast and you get some inspiration to go lose weight, or listen to a life coach, or enroll in one of your programs. And I mean, one little simple choice to do something can change your entire life.
True. That's right. In one of his methods or teaching, Carl Jung said something. He said, when anything happens to you all of a sudden and you try to fight it or reject it, or it's not like the normal course of your life, just stop there, freeze, and get out of your body. Look at yourself from the outside and see what's happening. Try to judge it, and then come back and make the decision. And it's a way to say, just don't fight everything because it's not up to your plan, or you didn't plan for it. Just sometimes go with it, or just see where it leads you. And whenever you think positive of anything, I think you'll get the best out of it. Yeah. And I used to fight everything around me because, as I said, it's kind of childhood programming. When you grow up in war, you get defensive by default. You have the shield up by default. So I used to fight everything, even if someone, like one of my team members would come into my office and say, "I need this. Why you need this? Why?" So, but when I changed and when everything happened, now I'm not doing this anymore. I mean, we just gotta see the positive everywhere.
Yeah, man. And if your life is like, I know, I listen to this YouTube channel every morning. It's called Mulligan Brothers. I don't know if you listen to that at all. It's inspirational videos, and I listen to a lot of their inspirational content before my day starts. So I can get in the right mindset. And I don't know who this guy is because they don't necessarily say who the speaker is. You just have voices with motivational music. And one guy was on there, and I wish I can give him credit for this because this is not my thought at all. But he's like, if you're going through life and you feel like bad things are happening to you, there's a reason behind that. Like, are you putting bad things into the world? Are you being dishonest? Honesty breeds honesty. Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
If you do the right things will happen. And that was a big game changer for me. It was I mean, it was like, what's, it's like a mirror, like the mirror theory. But reverse, instead of the kids being the mirror neurons and copying everything that you do, I feel like it's life too. Like the more positivity and the honesty that you portray in the world or shine, like the more that's going to reflect back in on you. Like the world will write that, right? I mean, everything's not going to be sunshine and flowers and balloons and lollipops. It's going to, the world's going to say, Trey, you want to be a podcaster, you want to do this with your company, you want to do this with your brand, I'm going to test you, brother. Like, it's going to be a long haul and it's going to suck. But guess what? If you continue to pay your dues, come in and day out, and be in the moment and be honest as you can possibly be, you're going to find some sort of success that you've been looking for. And it's going to be sweet, and it's going to be amazing, and it's going to be what you're looking for. And you continue living your life the way that you're living it right now, you won't miss it. But if you decide not to, you decide to praise all the wrong things in this life, you praise, be dishonest and deceitful and negative and, take advantage of people, then you'll never see that.
That's so true. And humans are smart. I mean, I've been seeing this through to be honest with you, I'm going to tell you something that maybe I'm not supposed to say, but I think of quitting every day. Every day I wake up in the morning, I'm like, this is hard. This is hard. I mean, I don't want to do this anymore. Why? Isn't it enough what I went through? Then I get a call from a client and he's happy about something and it gives him motivation. Like, okay, that's nice. Now I have motivation to go on. And when I started thinking of it, this is exactly the same thing with my clients. They need motivation to keep going on, just like I need motivation to keep going on, just like everyone in the world. They need purpose and motivation. So it's like you said, it's a circle. I mean, if you keep just pushing yourself, if you keep just standing up every time you feel tired and you find purpose and you just grab this motivation and you give it back, just anytime you get something, just give it back. It's amazing.
Yeah, man.
It's a loop.
Funny. It's one of my friends. She sent me this book, and we were talking about past life regressions. And I don't know why she sent me this book. I don't know what triggered it, but maybe she thought I was the captain or something on this boat. And it's entitled Endurance is the name of the title, Endurance. And it was like, she thought I was the captain of the book, but I took it in a different context. I was like, this story is about everyday trials of this crew who went to Antarctica to discover new land, and they actually get shipwrecked, and it's an inspiring story. But
wow,
I mean, it's a thick book of everyday occurrence, stuck on an iceberg, literally, with two rowboats, two rescue boats that they have that in the harshest conditions ever. And every day they write in their diaries and they explain the pain and the suffering they had to go through. And it went on for a couple of years. I'm like, the universe is trying to tell me something. Like endurance, you got to endure. Like if you want that success, it's not even about success, man. It's about, what is your mission? Like, what is it? Like, is it to help other people? Are you coming from the right place? Like, are you going to do it not because of greed, not because of fame, not because of money? Are you doing it because of the pure joy of helping people, bring them more awareness about the power that they have inside of themselves? And if it's coming from the right place, the universe will send you signs and messages that you're doing the right things. And when you lose your path, and again, this is not from me, this is from that same YouTube channel. If you lose your path, you're on to something because you're doing something different. You're doing something that no one else has ever done before. And you have to fight for that. And you're going to have to figure it out by yourself. And the universe will take care of you. It will show you the signs. You just got to be open to it and be in the moment, like we talked about.
Absolutely. And there are ways to achieve this. I'm very thankful that 4 years ago, I started, for example, yoga and meditation. Now it's part of my routine. I have to practice yoga every day. Now, my wife is a yoga instructor and she showed me the way and she helped me a lot. But now I'm hooked to yoga and to meditation. And meditation is amazing because if you think of it scientifically, meditation allows you to go deep into the pure self, your pure self. It's the transcendental phase. And your pure self is so pure, it has only the right answers. It doesn't have cheating. It doesn't have wrong answers. So anytime I'm stressed or anything, I just sit there and meditate for 15, 20 minutes. And when I wake up, I have the right answers. And I'm like, okay, this is the right thing to do. And this is how I need to keep going. Because as you said, life isn't easy. It's always greener on the other side, and every time you go to the other side, it's greener on the other side. But you gotta find a way. You gotta find a way to stay positive all the time. You gotta find a way to keep yourself on the right path.
Matt, man, I could talk to you all night, brother. I mean, this is pretty powerful stuff, man. I really do appreciate it. How can people connect with you?
It's very simple. I have my website and everything is on my site. It's Mathew Korban, Korban, .com, MathewKorban.com. They can schedule a consultation. They can see my story there, and they can see testimonials, references from other clients, from other people. And since we're talking about giving back to community, I'm giving back as well now in the COVID area, because it's the thing that's affecting everyone. And it's bad that it's happening, but I think the human race or people will come out very strong out of it, because I can see that everyone is giving back, everyone is putting their hands together, and I'm doing the same. I'm giving free consultations, I'm giving add-ons, I'm giving loads of documents for free for everyone, just part of a contribution for this.
I love it, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and just, free flow with me a little bit and talk about life, man. This has been very, very interesting and very informative, man. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's been amazing.
I want to say thank you to Matt for joining the show. I want to say thank you to you, the listener, for hanging out with me. I hope you got a lot out of this episode. I know I did. I recorded this earlier in the summer, and man, if I didn't pick up some stuff just from going back and listening to it, pretty good. Go to yoursuperiorself.com. Check me out. Leave me a message. Let me know your thoughts. Follow me on Instagram, tdowns80. And check me out on Facebook, Your Superior Self. All right, guys, I hope you guys have an amazing holiday. I hope that you guys are growing and expanding in your consciousness. I hope that you guys are taking that step towards growth, and I hope that I'm helping. That's all I want to do is help you. Help myself, help you. Helping you, help me. All right, guys, have a great week, and I will talk to you later.